Welcome back to Making Money Matter, ladies and gentlemen. I'm your host, Kerry Stevenson, and today it's a gift that keeps on giving. Dreadnought Resources, ASX code is DRE, and joining me is Dean Tuck. He's the Managing Director. We're going to talk lots of things. We're going to talk nickel. We're going to talk gold, because these guys have done some really good work over the past couple of years, but more importantly, where they are, it's all the way in WA, and their projects are all in Western Australia. But it's the Mangaroon project that is the gift that keeps on giving. And Dean, great to see you back on the channel. And it's Christmas time. Let's give everybody a Christmas present and tell them what's going on over.
Absolutely. Merry Christmas, Kerry, and it's great to be here.
Well, you're almost my last one for the year. Not quite, but almost. Let's, if you wouldn't mind, we're going to focus a lot on Mangaroon today. You've had some results coming out. This was a former mine, and you picked it up, I think, in 2020?
That is correct. So we picked up the Mangaroon project in 2020, but we only managed to consolidate the rest of the actual historical mine workings almost a year ago. So even since then.
How important was it? You just said you had to consolidate the area. First of all, how big is the area, and how important was it to consolidate?
So it's about, the Mangaroon project's around 5,000 square kilometers of ground. But the star of Mangaroon is really the sort of the heart and soul. It's the original major mine in this region. And that sort of shear linkage structure that's there seems to be quite a sweet spot for the gold mineralization, in order to have the big scale of opportunity that we think is there, which is not just the Star of Mangaroon. The Star of Mangaroon is a piece of the puzzle. It's a historical gold mine found by pastoralists. And here you have this major structural corridor that has never been explored. I don't have to say using modern technology, because there's never been a soil sample. There's never been airborne magnetics flown over it in any sort of detail aside from government data. And so here is a significant opportunity with proven high-grade gold that has not been explored. And if this turns into a camp, we see that as a real significant opportunity. And that's why over the last year and a half, while we've been drilling out the rare earths at Yin, we've been consolidating this gold opportunity within Mangaroon, which is the original reason why we got into the region in the first place.
You just mentioned rare earths at Yin, and I think there's rare earths also at Gifford Creek. Is that been the focus? And not the gold, or are you yin and yang, so to speak? Sorry.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Which one's more important?
Which one's more important? There's a lot of, there's not one that's more important than the other. So there's one more advanced than the other, and there's certain drivers that make some more in favor at the moment than the rest. So when we we pegged the ground in November 2020 for the gold and the nickel opportunity.
Okay.
Once we did that deal with First Quantum, very shortly thereafter, in early 2021, we cast our eyes across the project area and wanted to see what else could this project have potential for. And that's when we made that Yin discovery. Rare earths were hot, the price was running, there was a lot of interest in rare earths, and we started hitting it at outcrop. We drilled it, some of the thickest, highest grade intercepts in that region to date. And now we've put out, over the last year and a half, we've been drilling that. We put out very significant resources. It's one of the largest and highest grade resources now in that region. And we also made the Gifford Creek discovery, which is potentially the source big intrusions. And we still have some work to do on those. So for the last year and a half, the focus really has been on those rare earths for our field team, drilling and delivering those resources and creating that value. So going from the arm waving potential to actually start proving up the value, the resources, the met, and everything else. While we were doing that, we've been busy in the background as well, consolidating the rest of the Mangaroon project for when gold was going to turn. Like a long-term gold bull like yourself, Kerry, we always believed, Paul Chapman, big believer, that gold was going to run at some stage. And so we've been accumulating all these ground in the background, waiting for this gold moment. And it's come at a very opportune time for us. We've delivered the Yin resources that can now be progressed in the background. And we have what we see for 2024 is a lot of activity on the gold front at Mangaroon and with our nickel joint venture partners, First Quantum at Mangaroon. And then for the rare earths, we still see the opportunity, blue sky potential of the Carbonatite at Gifford Creek, and we'll be putting drill holes into that with full support of the government, the EIS co-funded scheme, which is fantastic for testing some of the targets we have defined.
It's interesting The consolidation that you've been doing in the background, were there a lot of pastoralists? Was it quite tricky to do that? And how important is that, I guess, for the overall? I'm looking at shareholder value, Dean, because the audience we have here, they're all either shareholders of Dreadnought, or they're looking going, where's Dreadnought at the moment, and where's the value at, I guess. So how important was that consolidation of the area in terms of value for shareholders going forward?
In terms of value for shareholders, the value of that area is twofold. One is in the prospectivity of the ground itself, and two is from what we can actually learn from the ground that is there. So it's not often that when you have a greenfields opportunity, because it's not truly a brownfields opportunity, it's a greenfields opportunity because it's an area that has not been explored by any sort of exploration techniques in sort of consolidated manner. And when you have historical workings, like the Star of Mangaroon, like Two Peaks, like diamonds, like the lead gold mine, like Pritchard's, that have been discovered and worked by pastoralists and prospectors, then we actually can look into those. We have quick wins. We can prove those up and see what opportunities exist within those that have been found already, and apply that knowledge straight back to our greenfields work, our soil geochemistry work, our mag interp work, and find out how can we prioritize targets and what do these things look like. So that leads to ultimately early wins and early resources for our shareholders. That's early valuation creation. And secondly, that allows us to more effectively and more efficiently bring on board the next discoveries, which we think are going to be the big discoveries for the region, which is why we moved into that region in the first place. So to have that consolidated, to learn from each of the different deposits on what these things look like, and then to go out and hit that mother lode or a couple of mother lodes and really turn this into a high-grade gold camp is an extremely fantastic opportunity. The Star of Mangaroon itself looks like a starlight lode, like from Musgraves, or it looks like a Penny West type system. And if you were to find a couple of those together within the same area, you have a big camp of high-grade gold. You're looking at a Bellevue-style opportunity.
Wow.
So that's what we see as the pie-in-the-sky opportunity here. That's why we've been consolidating, and that's what we look to prove, hopefully, if the drill bits are successful over the next 12 to 24 months.
12 to 24 months. Okay, it's interesting. Why didn't someone else pick this up in the past? Is it quite remote? I mean, is it something that people just passed over? I'm just curious, because 2020 and you managed to decide that this was an area. Why didn't somebody else go, hey, hang on a second, why didn't somebody grab it before you?
I've loved this area since 2008. Oh. So the Gascoigne is one of these areas that's been extremely unloved. You go back in time, I think we've talked about history in some of your earlier conversations. You go back to the early gold rush, 1890s, and people were pulling out, dollying the gold here and having to carry it to the nearest gold fields, hundreds of miles away at that stage, hundreds of kilometers as well. And so the state would actually go out and put state batteries into the emerging gold fields to try and help them develop. And the one that was destined for the Gascoigne region never got received or installed. And so you miss out on that first gold rush.
Sorry to interrupt you, but people won't know what a state battery is. So just remind, it sounds like Tesla's going out there, but it's not.
That's right. So when the miner goes out there, you see often with gold mining companies that put out that classic graph of here's our mine, here's a 50, 100, 150 kilometer radius. Because that's how far you can sort of truck gold at a gram and make money to the nearest mills. So the battery is the mill. So that's the payment point. So even more important than now, when you have trucks that can carry large tons of gold, in these days, the prospectors are pushing wheelbarrows, they're working with donkeys or horses or camels. And so they actually had to mine the gold, fully fund themselves to go out, find an area of gold, drill it, blast it, dig it out by hand, dolly it, put it into bags on the back of their pack horse or in the wheelbarrow, and then take it to a place to get paid. And so the state battery was the place that you could go to get paid. And so it's a way of encouraging further exploration and further prospecting in the region, because through prospectors' success would then bring more success, would allow the region to develop. So it was an early way of incentivizing exploration in the regions by installing state batteries. If the region already had a private battery, then the state would do it. If it was a new emerging field, they would install one and hopefully that would bring in more success and open up the region to exploration. So it missed out on that opportunity.
Why did it miss out again? Just remind me, I can't remember.
So from the story that picked up is the battery was on the steamer. It was getting dropped off at Carnarvon. The state engineer did show up. I like to, in my mind, think he was probably hungover or something like that. And so the steamer left with the battery on board, and it never got installed. And so that's the 1890s. You go back to the next gold rush is 1910. You can go into Trove. You can look up the old newspapers, and you can see the people in the Gascoyne region begging the state to put in another state battery. They said no. 1930s, same thing, asking, we're dollying gold here. We need to open up this field. We need a state battery to encourage more people and more development. And again, the answer was no. At one stage, one of the groups tried to bring together a battery at Bangamall Field, and it never actually worked because no one really knew what they were sort of amassing, putting it together. And so it's an area that never got the early stage development. And so here you are missing out 1890s, 1910, 1930. Now you have all these other gold fields which are opening up and very successful, and the Gascoyne gets looked upon as there's no success there. And so it becomes uninteresting to the point where even as late as 1990s, 2000s, when Steve Shepard and co. were doing the mapping in the Gascoyne region for the GSWA, they were finding all this really interesting mineralization out there, and they were asking for additional funding and additional state geos to help map this region and do these reports and help promote. And the head of the GSW at the time said, there's no mineral prospectivity in the Gascoyne, you're not getting extra funding. And so you can see this snowball effect of how a decision from day one snowballs to today. So we look at that and go, understanding that history, this looks like an amazing opportunity that shouldn't exist. Like our Kimberley story, it was off limits to exploration. This area wasn't off limits, but it was deemed as unprospective. And so that's a very exciting place for us to go out and do the sort of work that we do and get some really good bang for buck for those results.
And start to do the na.
That's right.
So because you've got some assay results back, and I really want you to let us know, tell our audience some of these assay results that have come back, because they are quite spectacular.
Spectacular. I'm off the top of my head. Where we were talking about 7-8 meters at 15, 20 plus grams per ton gold. We're looking at half ounce dirt over good thicknesses. And it's one of the other modern techniques we get to deploy here is the new photon assay technique that's being rolled out across the state and across the world in these high grade free gold systems. Because we pan the gold, we see the gold. It's spectacular. And the photon allows us to have a nice big high confidence assay, use 500 grams instead of 35, 50 grams of material. And so that's really given us some really good confidence in the assays and assessing this for the first time with some of that drilling. So that's really exciting. But what's even more exciting is while the Star of Mangaroon itself is a piece of the puzzle and it's going to turn into most likely a high grade resource that will be economic. It's at surface. There's only minimal workings in the rest of it, and we're chasing it down at depth. But what we can learn from that, what we can learn about the controls on mineralization, the alteration, the geophysical parameters, the geochemical pathfinders, means that we can actually drill these historical workings and apply that straight into our project and our target generation work. And we have things already popping up like Tiger, which is about 1 kilometer away from the Star of Mangaroon, which is this 400, 500 meter by 300 meter zone of really intense gold and pathfinder anomalism that drowns out everything else in the region. So it's no historical gold work out here. And here we have this screaming gold on, and we're defining more, and we're done more soil geochemistry. There's going to be more coming out. And so as we do this early drilling into the historical workings, those can and most likely will turn into individual resources in their own right. But one of the main reasons for drilling those, aside from getting early hits and potentially delivering resources in their own right, is that it'll allow us to guide our exploration, our target gen and target definition drilling, so we can make those big discoveries within that region and really prove up this camp to what we think it is. Because we think this area is more than just the Star of Mangaroon or these historical workings. It's never been soil sampled. It's never had this other stuff. And so we're really looking forward to proving this into a big camp.
In doing the work, because you said it before, the sweet spot. Do you think that there's going to be some other sweet spot? Because it sounds to me if I do an analogy of sort of there's the Star of Mangaroon in the center, if you like, and potentially there's other satellite discoveries that could happen. These things often come in clusters. I'm trying to get a visual, if we get words, of what this look like.
Most gold fields are gold camps. You know, you look at somewhere like, as an extreme example, you know, you look at something like John D. John D is an area that's a couple kilometers by a couple kilometers, and there's 13 open cut mines there. Wow. You know, this is the camp scale. You know, gold is not always found in one big deposit. It's often found in different lodes within an area with the structural setting is just right. It's the Goldilocks zone, but it's not Goldilocks for a single vein. It's Goldilocks for a collection of veins in different orientations. And that's what we believe we have in the Star of Mangaroon zone. The Star of Mangaroon is just the one that's sticking out of the ground that the pastoralists were able to find. And what we're going to find through geochemistry is the next one. And hopefully that's even bigger and better than the star, or it's a collection of similar things like the star. But that's what we will find through our exploration. And that's what gets us so excited about the region.
You mentioned before the photon assay technique that you're using. Why is that important? How does that help?
So gold is the nugget effect, gold assay, basic geochemistry. You know, when you talk about a good gold deposit, and these days and age being a gram or two, 1 or 2 parts per million, and you're trying to assay that, you can go into sample theory, but trying to get that one little gram of gold and a sample in a representative manner is very, very difficult. And they call it the nugget effect. And so gold is extremely difficult to assay. And generally you have a 25 or 50 gram aliquot of material, which you then digest and melt into a blob of fire assay, and then you burn that off and you prove up the gold. But you can run that assay multiple times and get multiple answers, especially in high-grade nuggety systems like the star. Because when you have free gold, that 50 gram aliquot could either be in or out. So it could either be a zero or a hero. And what the photon assay, developed by CSIRO, commercialized by Chrysos, and now pretty much used across the industry, Barrick's installing all of these at mine sites. You look at the recent high-grade gold discoveries like Starlight, like Penny, even like Never Never, that fantastic discovery that Spartan has. You know, all of those you go through there, and they're all using the photon assay. And then what that does, instead of having a 25 or 50 gram sample, it allows you to take a 500 gram sample. And so you have a much better chance of getting a representative amount of gold particles in there to have a high confidence and repeatable assay. And so it's very good, especially for these high grade and free gold type systems. It gives you a much more robust analysis, because if you have real nuggety gold, say you find a 1 gram nugget, it's not a very big nugget. You have a 25 gram sample that goes in, that's a super high grade sample. That 1 gram's out, it's a nothing. So by having 500 gram samples, it's just a way of improving sample representativity. Sorry, I'm struggling with my words. And also confidence in those.
It's getting to that time of the year.
So it's a great breakthrough. Another Australian fantastic discovery, and it's really taken the industry by storm. But a lot of these systems, like the Star of Mangaroon, we have high grade free gold. It's a groundbreaking technique that allows you to have high confidence.
Okay, so these results coming out are good. You're going to continue to drill. Just if you could, before I move on, because I want to move on to First Quantum and the nickel, and I want to move on to the rare earths again. But with the gold coming into 2024, what's the news flow going to be looking like for Mangaroon next year?
All right, we have 2 channels of gold. One is going through and drilling the historical workings. So we started that already, got the Star of Mangaroon, Lead Gold Mine, 2 Peaks, Pritchards, Diamonds, and the rest. And while we're doing that work and drilling those and delivering results and potentially resources in their own right, we are doing the surface geochemistry, the mapping, the surface sampling that will lead us to those next discoveries, like the Tiger and the other dozen of targets we've already started defining. And so we'll get through the historical workings, we'll develop our internal knowledge, we'll be delivering exciting results that will lead into hopefully resources in their own rights because they are historical mines, and then prove up and have this full pipeline of new discoveries, which will hopefully really drive home the proving of this being a big camp. So we can see that over the next 12 months, we'll be drilling the historical workings while proving up. And then from mid-year, hopefully, we should be drilling targets.
And you're fairly confident that there's going to be more discoveries in that area, which will put a smile on the dial of yourself and
There's never a guarantee in exploration, but yes, we firmly believe that you couldn't ask for a better opportunity for an area to make high-grade gold discoveries.
In that consolidation that you did, just a question that's come to my mind, in the consolidation of all of this, does it make it easier for you to work out there? Are any of these pastoralists involved in the company? Have they got shares? Have they got any interest in it? Or is it just, we're just all doing this now?
We got some great pastoralists out there, great people that we're working with. It's a fantastic working environment. There's a lot of support. We know some of the pastoralists through family indirectly. So like Drew Money, who's done work with us for a long time and been involved with us. His family owns the Lyndon Station. The Darcy family and the Money family go way back. That's why we named nickel the Money intrusion. And so there's an instant connection there. We're very, very close with these groups. Sorry, my headphones keep falling out. And then we have the new owners at Maruna, and very supportive with everything that we're doing. It's really a great environment, and we have positive relationships, and it certainly makes things a lot easier for us.
Okay, so lots of news around Mangaroon. First Quantum, the deal that you've done with First Quantum, they do all the drilling just across the prospectivity for nickel in the area. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct. So at this stage, we're still managing that exploration. So we still look after the rigs and the approvals and everything else. And that's just for the nickel and associated metal rights over that Money intrusion.
So what are they doing at the moment with the nickel? I mean, Talk to me like a 5-year-old.
All right. So we just, end of this year, we went back out and drilled a few more holes trying to find the keel position of the intrusion. So 2021, we entered it. We had this belief that these had high tenor sulfides. We saw these bloody sulfides at surface, and we wanted to prove that this was a fertile system that could form massive sulfides. Because if it did form massive sulfides, they would be very, very high grade, and it wouldn't take much of them to make up a very valuable resource, looking at something like Eagle in the US. And what we proved this year through our drillings, we actually hit massive sulfide for the first time. It was only a couple of meters thick, but it was a small plate. It was 40, 50 meters down from surface, and it proved that this system could actually form massive sulfides. It's a very fertile system, and these things are very rare to find. And so now it's been trying to find where's the best trap position to form these massive sulfides, and been testing the keel position, trying to find where the best trap sites are going to be. So we did that drilling this year. Most of the holes didn't hit the bottom of the intrusion, which shows that there is a lot of variability in the base of that intrusion. And that's good because that forms a lot of potential trap sites. And secondly, that also proves that those trap sites are below the search base of the surface EM that we did last year. So not only is the prospectivity enhanced, but it also shows that the areas that we had screened before, there's still potential sitting beneath that, because the effective search base of the surface geophysical techniques we used did not penetrate deep enough to test these trap sites or to light something up that might be there. So those holes that we drilled this year will now be diamond-tailed and turned into downhole EM platforms. To complement that, they've also recently completed, I think the crew might still be on site actually, IP surveys running up the two of the arms of the intrusion. So that the Bukathana and Kulipakana dikes with part of the Money intrusion, we run an IP, First Quantum's run an IP line straight up the guts of each of those to light up along that keel where that halo of disseminated mineralization might be, which then be tested by drilling first thing next year. So that's where we are at the moment, which means in March next year, as soon as the weather allows us, give or take a few weeks, that's when we will mobilize back out there. We'll likely have a RC rig, a diamond rig, and surface geophysical crews and downhole geophysical crews to really assess that Money intrusion in earnest. And while that rig is up there, we'll peel off the RT rig when we can and go drill our gold targets. So we'll be kicking off next year with drilling the nickel and doing lots of geophysics with First Quantum, and then using that RC rig that's up there to then go and drill some of our gold targets.
Yeah, from a shareholder point of view, First Quantum, they pay for all of this, don't they? And in return,
yes.
Just give us the basis of what, because I think you still have, what is it? They pay for all the drilling and the work that's being done up there. So there's There's nothing that Dreadnought Resources needs to put in for the nickel. Is that correct?
That is correct. So we are fully funded to a decision to mine, at which point they have 70% and we have 30. At the moment, they're still in their earnings. So at the moment, we still own 100% of this project.
Okay.
They have to spend 12 mil to get their first 51%, and then we are free carried to a decision to mine for that 70%.
And look, I know you can't say exactly when a decision to mine is, but in a sort of in an ideal world, are we talking 2 to 3 years, or are we? What's that?
If your decision to mine, you have to have the discoveries made, the resources, and then the studies done. So 2 to 3 years would be very fast if we hit something pretty early next year. Absolutely. But that would be there's a lot of drilling, there's a lot of discovery, there's a lot of assets and good news flow that comes up to that point. So there's a lot of news flow being generated by and paid for by First Quantum.
And First Quantum are not a small company, so they clearly think that there's something there. Otherwise, they would not be spending $12+ million, would they?
That's correct. So they've been a great party to deal with, and we really look forward to kicking off next year with them and being at Mangaroon for that nickel, and also being close to where our gold is and the rare earths and getting stuck into those.
Dean, this could be a really dumb question, but you know what? I'm a simple country girl. What can I say? Is the nickel completely separate from where the gold is?
Pretty much at this stage.
So where is it?
That's right. So the money intrusion, or the nickel sits within, at this stage, within the money intrusion, which is a 45, 50 kilometer long dike, mafic intrusion. That's around 100 to 500 meters wide and runs for 45, 50 Ks.
Wow.
Everything else is gold. So it's that thing to get from the Star of Mangaroon, gold mine up to where the nickel is, probably around a 30, 45 minute drive.
Okay, so it's not that far away, but they are completely separate structures, if you like.
That is correct. Completely different systems, different structures, close enough for us to work on both while we're up there, but completely separate from, I guess, future mining or system or interrelated building that goes.
Okay. I said I'd come back to rare earths. I don't want to confuse you guys because I'm pretty excited about the gold. And I'm going to ask Dean about why he thinks now is a good time for gold at the end of this conversation. But rare earths were a bit of a darling for a little while. It seems to have gone quiet-ish at the moment. What's happening with your rare earths? And there have been some challenges with, I guess, some of the rare earth deposits in the past. Why is yours potentially better, more value to shareholders in the long term?
Yeah. So yes, start of the year, end of last year, rare earths were quite the rage, quite the popular thing. Yep. Over the last 12 months, prices have come down, and all the rare earth related companies have taken a hit along the way. Unfortunately, that happened while we were delivering massive drill outs and proving up the resource on the rare earths. But there's value in that now, and when those prices return, we should see a return of value from that asset in the work that we have done. So you look at companies like Linus. Linus is off a couple $2 billion this year. Nearly every rare earth company is down. So it's been a hard year for all rare earth companies. Lithium went through the same thing, only in 2020 went up to or went bust. So it is part of the cycle. It is part of the system, and that's why we're diversified by commodity exporter. So the Yin resource has been delivered. That's one of the thickest, highest grade at surface resources in that region. I think we've surpassed the incumbent that region now, Hastings Resources, next door to us. Combined, you're looking at quite a significant presence of ironstone at surface mineralization. What makes that region so spectacular? High NdPr trio ratio. So not all rare earths are created equal. Things like cerium and lanthanum aren't worth a whole lot, worth less than $1 a kilo. Whereas your neodymium, praseodymium, and then even more important, dysprosium and terbium, which are more important, different deposits. This is really neodymium, praseodymium, are worth significantly more. I think at the moment, we're probably around 80, not traditionally, but at the start of the year, $100, $120 a kilo. And what the resources have here in the Gascoyne region at Yin is some of the highest NdPr trio ratios in the world. So when you produce in the world, so globally, rare earth resources average around between 15 and 25% neodymium, praseodymium, and with the average being around 20. And so when you have a handful of concentrate, the first product to be sold from a rare earth mine, a handful of concentrates, these two, that handful of concentrates from the rest of the world and a handful of concentrate from the Yin and Yangibana area, the stuff from Yin and Yangibana has 50% to twice as much NdPr in it as the stuff from the rest of the world. And so the value of that concentrate is significantly higher than any other concentrate. And one of the second beneficial aspects of it in these ironstones, separating phosphates from oxides is a fairly straightforward process. Nothing is straight, easy, or when it comes to rare earth met, but it is a bit more straightforward than separating it from carbonates and the rest. And so you have a very clean and a very good recovery, a high recovery of your rare earths in the concentrates. So those are two things that make this area quite unique, is that you have a very high NdPr trio ratio, which makes it a high value con. And if you're a refiner, if you're someone that's in processing that to the next stage, then you have to look for, I want a ton of this concentrate or a ton of that concentrate. With this concentrate, not only are you getting more neodymium, praseodymium, but you're also getting less of the elements that you have to separate anyway, that you don't get paid as much for. So it's a very high value concentrate, and that's quite an exciting thing, big differential for this region.
Differential. So, go on.
So that resource has been delivered, and there's quite a significant amount of material there, and that now goes into de-risking and sits in the background. The Gifford Creek carbonatite is something that we discovered as part of this process. So we have the ironstones around the area, and then in the center you have these carbonatites, and one of those plugs still has potential to be a significant, large, high-grade body. Again, and so we will still be doing work.
Sorry, Dean, I keep interrupting you, but I get feedback from people. They say, what is a carbonatite? Because
what is a carbonatite?
A lot of my viewers out there, they're not miners, they're not geologists, so I like to just bring it back to basics sometimes.
Carbonatite is one of the weirdest rocks that exists in geology, if you will. So there's a lot of geologists out there that don't even ever get an opportunity to see something like a carbonatite. So it's an igneous rock, but instead of being full of quartz and feldspar or plagioclase and olivine, it's full of carbonate. It's like an igneous limestone, if you will. Like they're extremely funky rocks, and they're really, really, really funky rocks. And to the point, there's only, I think there's probably a few more now. I think the one stage was only 630 or 650 carbonatites known globally. And 1 in 10 was a deposit ore mine.
Okay.
So you look at your gold explorers would probably be very familiar with, you have a 1 in 10,000 or 1 in 1,000 chance of a prospect becoming a mine. Carbonatites are the 1 in 10. So they're extremely funky, extremely unique rocks that have a very high probability of turning into an economic body. And that's something that is because they're funky and they form cool things and they concentrate rare earths and phosphates and scandium. And, I think over 80-90% of the world's scandium comes from the Bayan Obo mine in China, which is also the world's largest rare earth mine, which also produces niobium. These mines produce a lot of different things, and they're very unique, and it's pretty spectacular. And so to have these, they're extremely worthwhile pursuing, because you do have such an exciting opportunity to prove up something big and high grade that could be economic. And so we have the Yin ironstones, and Hastings has the Yangibana ironstones next by, and those are ironstone dikes. They're sort of tabular bodies, like a pegmatite, if you will, and they run around 1% to 2% rare earths. The carbonatites have the potential. You look at something like Bayan Obo, or you look at Mountain Pass, or you look at Mount Weld, or even down to something like Kankagundi. These are quite large. They could be 2, 3, 5, 6% rare earths. And so that opportunity is potentially still sitting there at Gifford Creek. We've done some geophysical surveys. We think we have some areas where there's deep residual weathering, which might form some of these high-grade bodies. And we're going to be testing those with support of the government EIS co-funded scheme. And we see that as a potential game changer for the region, even in a soft rare earth market. So we're very excited to do that drilling as well, while we're up there drilling the gold and drilling the nickel at the start of next year.
Busy boys, busy time for Dreadnought Resources. That's why I wanted to get him on. Now, before I finish up and ask you 3 reasons why people should sit up and take notice, gold at the moment, it sort of pushes past 2,000, comes back a bit. And you said earlier on in this conversation that you think now is gold's time to shine. I'd just like your view on, you know me, I run the Australian Gold Conference, so I bloody love it. But, what's Dean Tuck's view on the gold market at the moment?
My view is that people want it and we're going to find it. That's the view. The view on the markets. I mean, look, we're going into, there's a lot of people much smarter than me talking about why gold should have been running. It's like watching the Big Short movie. They saw the hallmarks were sitting there, and they were sitting there for years, and people had to suffer and be, getting punished for a crying wolf. The sky is falling, and then the sky falls, and it feels like that time is upon us for the gold space. Most of the people that analyze this field says it's supposed to break. You have the charters saying it's going to break. You have the fundamental says it's time for it to run. It's broken through 2,000 US, and we'll see how that goes into next year. If we go into deflation or if we go into all these other things. Again, I'm a geologist. My job is to find the stuff that people need. And if people want gold, which we believe was coming, then we've been amassing those gold opportunities in the background, and we're really excited to be drilling those next year. Because if the world says they want gold, we've got some gold for them.
Well, I'd call you out. You say I'm just a geologist, but you're also, and I think it's important to point out, you're a historian as well, because you do a lot of research into why you should be in certain areas, and you've done your research, as you said earlier in this conversation. So I call you the geology with a historian bent, if you like. Dean, go on.
I said the biggest discoveries are made in new areas and unloved areas. So you look at your Julimars, it might be on the nose at the moment, but still, you look at your Julimars, you look at your De Greys, you look at your Gruyères, you look at your Tropicanas, your Nova Bollingers. All of those were areas that weren't supposed to have any potential. All the experts said they were unperspective. Those were the big opportunities. So if we can actually merge the science and the history to find these next fields, that's what we're excited about. And that's what we've always seen with the Gascoigne. It's what we saw with the Kimberley. It's what we see with Central Yilgarn. We see a lot of opportunity. And yes, finding that history, merging that with the science, we see that as one of the great contributors to the project generation space.
You're so right, because I do remember with De Grey mining up in the Pilbara, I remember people turning around. I think it was 2012. They said, there is no gold in the Pilbara. You're crazy.
Exactly. That's the best place to go look. Where people say there isn't gold, that's where to go look for gold.
Yeah, so watch this space, guys. All right, Dean, before I let you go for your Christmas break, give us 3 reasons why you think right now Dreadnought Resources is one to sit up and take notice of.
Taking the hit for 2023. Rares are sitting there ready to recover as a valuable asset, and we're going to be focused on delivering the next big discovery in gold, nickel, and whatever else our projects have to offer.
Dean Tuck, Dreadnought Resources, thank you so much. ASX code, ladies and gentlemen, DRE, watch this space. Plenty of news coming out in 2024. I'll have Dean back on after the Christmas break, and we'll see what some of those results look like coming back. But for now, that Star of Mangaroon, it's the gift that keeps on giving as we go into Christmas. But watch this space. Dean, thanks so much for joining me on Making Money Matter.
Thank you, Kerry. Always a pleasure.